male superhero that really it's like black women. And I love that. I love black women. And I'm very keenly aware of how, whether it's like, the burden of the Democratic Party or the burden of history or whatever it is, just how underwritten black women are in our history, including in the history of rock and roll. So, Black Women Rock is a specific tribute to the great Betty Davis, but, icons from Tina Turner to Grace Jones, back to Bessie Smith. And so just kind of the role in, the role of black women in music and how that's a political act, and the kind of, there's a subculture that's been made of Afropunk and the Afropunk Festival, and there's a certain aesthetic that's come out of that particular, first the documentary and then the festival, but you got to figure that the documentary captured kind of alt blackness. When I look at my own biography, one of the things that I loved about Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul and like those cats when I was a teenager was, I think they were among the first examples that I had in popular culture of cats that were just a little weird. It's funny because like my son and all his friends look like the Native Tongues. They look like, they look like they could have been in a Tribe Called Quest. But like that thing of there's more than one way to be, and I'm sure that we all feel this, depending on what our demographic is or what demographic thing is. There's like a stereotype of how it is that we should be or how it is that we should present in the world, and maybe there's some of those things that are stereotypically true, and there are some of the things that are just patently false, but you're kind of, in terms of the outside perception, there's a consciousness about where you fit in the spectrum. I think in terms of the African American experience, there's a kind of politics of respectability, that you hear in some ways propagated by like the Bill Cosbys of the world, kind of pre the revelation of his like creepy, his criminal and creepy pathology. Jesse Jackson, there are any number of black leaders that say this is how it is that you're supposed to do the thing if you want to be successful. Pull your pants up. That kind of thing. Well, rock music is antagonistic and anti-establishment, and the role of black people in rock music, Bad Brains, Parliament Funkadelic, Hendrix, Chuck Berry, Little Richard. How were these people anti-establishment? And then you take it one step further and you apply gender to that. So it's this combination of here is an underwritten, underappreciated segment of our population, two strikes off top, born female, born colored, and so immediately outside of the norm, outside of cultural center, or what culture deems to be centers of power. And trafficking in this music that is also coming from the fringes of society that has managed to move its way towards a central aesthetic. That combination of things is really powerful and really provocative, and yet still really undervisible. You know what I mean? Like Michelle and Deggy, like how many sisters do you know are just on Front Street thrashing? you know what I'm saying? I don't know. How many women in general like are just out on Front Street? So all those histories, so it literally forces the public to reimagine Black women, to reimagine rock music, the history of both. Who gets to rock? And in very many ways, everything that these women are doing is about like not asking permission.
I think the Betty Davis aspect needs to come through here too, and like as we think about the content, because I actually didn't know about Betty Davis. Because I think there's a confusion, right? There's two Betty Davis, so we need to even when I search her name, they're like, "Do you mean Betty Davis?" Like B-E-T-T-E? I'm like, no, I didn't mean that. So I think there's something there as well in making this correlation between who they're honoring.
Yes.
So I think that needs to be there as we think about the content as well.
Yeah, I mean, even the fact that like it's replaced by somebody else in Google, like that's so intense. Intense.
It says, "Do you mean?"
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to talk to them about like who influenced them, and like I don't know where they found role models or like a lack thereof role models for them.
I think almost also just visually, if you were to watch it with the sound off, that it could just be like a style history.
Totally.
Like, when you say Afro-punk, like I follow Afro-punk really close, like just their Instagram alone is just like this universe of super influential style that you just can't get enough of. It's so inventive and it's just like, it's just burgeoning. It's like just a font for so much like creativity and stuff. It's the political aesthetic. I mean, it could just read as that, just visually at least, like apart from that, I wonder. You know what I mean? Because that's how a lot of that profile and that whatever persona is built, and like this identity is built is just through that just visual aesthetic, and it's never boring to watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just I
think that's hella real. I mean, for those of us, for folks who have never been to the Afropunk Festival, you've definitely seen those images. I don't know if we have the term Black Girl Magic without the Afropunk Festival. Like there's, it's just like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Just so.
It's everybody. It's not like you have to be a celebrity or be on stage. It's like you have to. I was like, I would be afraid because you have to bring it.
You have to bring it.
Everyone.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. This is great. What else, guys?
Is that all of them right there?
So we have 4 local folks, I think there was just that question you had about the marketing.
Other influencer marketing.
What about DJ Spooky at all, or
He's not local.
Yeah,
but like as far as it being important?
He's important.
I can show you something.
Oh, do you want to expand it?
Oh, no, I can show you guys a couple things that I'm just throwing together right now, and DJ Spooky is one of them, and this breaks down. It's like very basically like what he's talking about, right? Like about, well, a lot of it's taken from the National Geographic stuff, so it's like you get the big ideas there along with that. And a bunch of stock footage. I don't know, I can show you. It's just really, really rough. But, it's great.
Okay. Cool. And then do you want to just, let's revisit the influencer marketing bit.
Yeah.
So your intention intention is that we should tap into some super network people or specific performances
Yeah.
to bring in audiences.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to incentivize that.
Yes.
And so, I mean, one of the easy low-hanging fruit is like the Green Sisters run Black Women Rock.
Uh-huh.
You know? So we want to explore, like, what other shows do you see needing that extra level of support? Like, what are the performances within the framework that we're looking at that need that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so it's almost like you would want the Green Sisters and their ilk to work with both Black Women Rock and with Okwe's show. The Okwe Opakwasili show is interesting because, and we were talking about this a little bit, she's contemporary performance world famous. Do you know what I mean? She's like, you know, the film Bronx Gothic has gotten, she's like New Yorker famous, you know? And famous enough that, you know, she has this, you know, she has this Jay-Z thing. Now, her connection with the 444 album really doesn't have anything to do with this piece. It's just like part of the cult of personality. You know, it's just kind of, and I don't know if anybody who'd seen, you know, seen this video on Tidal or whatever would be like the natural thing, right? But there has to be a way, I think, to like investigate the places where she's shown up in popular culture and the places where she's shown up in kind of highfalutin, you know, highbrow media and periodicals, and mine that intersection for, you know, for audience. That said, the work itself speaks to an immigrant experience, speaks to African diaspora, and speaks to political resistance. And so the simple thing would be to say, yeah, you know, Melanie and Melora will get all the Black girls to come to the Black Girl Show, but that's, and that might actually be exactly what we want for Black Women Rock, but I think that there's probably something deeper for Okwe. But I would say Okwe's is a show that probably needs a little love. It's kicking off the festival. It's on a Wednesday and Thursday. It's in some ways, it's in a really hard place. It's just it's not on a weekend. It's in the Forum. It's right, but in many ways, it's kind of the perfect thing to kick everything off. So some influence or love there, and yeah. I think Spooky's gonna be fine. I think, Spooky and Stacy, I think, are gonna be fine. I think that, you know, we'll find the person for Black Women Rock. I think that'll be cool. I think Lars Jan is also, like, I don't know what the kind of like social dynamic around his work is or could be, but that's also going to, it's also going to need a little bit more love. It's a really interesting piece. He himself is a really interesting guy. You know, we're dealing with all these issues of, in the play, we're dealing with 1950s era surveillance systems in Eastern Europe, and they're eerily similar to a kind of like culture of surveillance that's showing up in our present politics. In the case of the play, that kind of culture of surveillance traumatized a man who became Lars's dad. And Lars never is really able to connect to his dad because his pop is freaked out and traumatized and like literally lives in a basement in Boston, doesn't speak to folks, is kind of cut off from the world.